Going from 0 listens and no fans to millions of streams a month and a rising fan base has never been easier than it is in 2024. Artists are coming out of relative obscurity to become massive at an extremely rapid rate, a rate we've never seen before. In years prior, it's taken years to even get a record label to notice you, but now artists are able to blow up with a single song. It's giving music fans constant new options. This is causing a massive problem in the music industry, and this is only the beginning.
I'm so scared right now, you shut up!
The world of consumer versus artist is becoming closer and closer to one whole circle. It's never been easier to create music. You don't even have to know how to play an instrument. You hardly even need a computer. David famously made his massive hit Romantic Homicide on his iPhone. With access being at an all-time high, we're seeing more new artists coming out than ever before. Good ones, average ones, and terrible ones.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
With such a massive pool of artists and people consuming music at an all-time high, it's easy to assume that the best will make it to the top. Not quite. Because the pool is so large, the ability to get noticed is also exponentially harder. Simply being talented isn't enough anymore, though I wish it was. But there's a reason certain artists will forever remain in that underrated purgatory. But there are 3 steps that artists are using to break through from the obscurity to mainstream. And I'm going to reveal how artists are using these 3 steps to get noticed. And at the end, I'm going to explain why this is actually terrible for the music industry. Obviously, the music you make can't be terrible, but it doesn't have to be good.
What? What?
It sounds crazy, but making something good is one of the less important steps. Which brings me to step 1. Figuring out what your thing is. What makes you stand out? It could be in your music, but it can also be in how you present yourself. Let's look at these super quickly rising artists as a case study. Bats, who got a Drake feature after 3 songs, fredagain, who was already an industry favorite before he even released an album, and Clairo, a bedroom pop artist who blew up after 1 YouTube video. What was the thing that made them stick out? Bats' thing was that his music didn't match his face. With his high-pitched voice, it stopped people in their tracks. Fredagain flips and samples random phone videos and presents his music in a very raw format that's really unique. Clairo had the bedroom pop, homemade aesthetic that felt authentic. Each of these artists, regardless of what you think of them, they all filled a unique niche. And frankly, a lot of people are debating whether these artists are worthy of the success they've gotten, but honestly, that doesn't matter. They are successful. Artists who create music that's similar to someone else are relying on being better than their clone. That's possible in some scenarios, but you can't consistently keep up with larger artists. With so many options, these newer artists have to set themselves apart from the crowd. Now, part 2, collaborate. You get a little bit of attention, people are curious, but not fans yet. Now the artist needs to collaborate with someone outside of their niche. Ice Spice blew up in rap, then made a song with Pink Panthers and hit a whole new level of consumer. Lil Nas X had Old Town Road, then collaborated with Jack Harlow to go from meme to best new artist candidate. Post Malone blew up way back in 2016 with White Iverson, then immediately collaborated with Quavo. Now he's one of the biggest artists in the world. If you go to any popular artist's discography with a quick rise, you will see a hit single followed up by a song with huge features. It's a hack that record labels have been using to push these artists from meme/one-hit wonder status into industry mainstays.
Got him. We got him.
Finally, part 3. It's simple. Release the album or EP. It may seem obvious, but it's not. Some artists just wait too long. Strike while the iron is hot. Even if it's just moderately successful, you've made it. You're successfully a mainstream artist. Now, obviously, this is way more said than done. Artists have been using this to blow up. Okay, so what's bad about this? We have more to choose from, so what's the downside? Well, we haven't necessarily been seeing it as clear, but behind the scenes, it's definitely happening. Remember some of the artists I brought up earlier? Fredagain, Bats, Clairo? Their sudden rise was cool, but it's not coincidental. Fredagain was producing massive hits before he even started his solo work. Bats allegedly has connections with major label heads, and Clairo's family is extremely connected and wealthy. There's a reason to believe this kind of rise is going to be much more prevalent than the growth of Lil Nas X and Ice Spice. With the rise of social media and music marketing, we've seen so many artists gain notoriety through organic means. What's the point of a label if an artist can get exposure just by posting on TikTok? But something is happening underneath. A bubble is about to burst. Too many artists are trying to grow organically, and when there's millions of people trying to get views online, it's impossible to get true exposure. So what do artists need? That's where record labels come back into play. They have the money and connections to cut through the noise. As sad as it is, record labels such as Interscope and Capitol are going back to becoming much more of a commodity. Bats gets a ton of attention because of his unique style, but it takes more than just a viral moment to become a big artist. So what does this all actually mean for the music industry, and what can you expect as a music consumer? Well, first off, getting into the industry is going to be way more important. From the last decade, we've been trying to get away from that with things like SoundCloud, TikTok, and all these independent artists blowing up. With it so tough to get noticed now, you're going to need a step ahead, and being in the industry, aka being part of a label or knowing people or being a writer, producer before you make music is going to be massive. Much like how Frank Ocean came up, he wrote for big artists and then eventually made his own music. In the modern version being Fredagain, where he helped produce with Brian Eno and helped produce for massive artists like Ed Sheeran before he even released anything. Being in the industry is almost going to be a prerequisite for success. Obviously, there's going to be outliers where artists will blow up naturally. The barrier for entry is going to get way tougher, which means unfortunately, no one wins except the labels.